Richard III, the infamous hunchback King of England. Was he a villain, or was he a hero? Generally, he's considered a villain. This is mainly due to the play written by William Shakespeare at the end of the 16th century. Shakespeare, of course, lived in the time of the Tudors. The Tudors were enemies of Richard, the last Plantagenet king of England. What I want to try and do in this class is separate fact from fiction. Our story begins in a car park in Leicester in the year of our Lord 2012.
A skeleton found last year under a car park in the English city of Leicester has been confirmed as that of a long-lost king. British scientists announced that DNA testing conclusively proves the remains are those of Richard III, King of England from 1483 to 1485, when he died in battle.
King of England and France, Lord of Ireland. Philippa, please.
Finally, the world gets to see the face of the man who's now known as the King in the Car Park. The reconstruction of Richard III's features was only made possible after archaeologists confirmed it was his skeleton buried beneath a car park in Leicester. Artists used previous portraits of the king for his hairstyle, eye colour and clothing, but the bone structure of this model is extremely accurate.
Richard was born in 1452 and was the son of the 3rd Duke of York. The 3rd Duke of York believed he was the rightful King of England. Richard was locked in a long and bitter war with the King of the day, Henry VI. This war was known as the War of the Roses. Henry wore the red rose of Lancaster and Richard the white rose of York. By 1471, the white rose of York was victorious and Edward IV was King of England. Edward was Richard III's older brother. Naturally, as the winner, Edward had the loser, Henry VI, sent away to the Tower of London. Henry was never seen alive again. By all accounts, Edward was something of a ladies' man. This fact would unseat his direct family from the throne of England. But hey, War of the Roses? Anyway, Edward had his queen, Elizabeth, but he was rumoured to have already been married to Lady Eleanor Talbot, rendering Edward IV a bigamist, and therefore any claim to the throne made by any of his direct descendants an invalid one. Anyway, Edward got on with the business of being king, with his brothers George at his side, and of course his youngest brother Richard. George didn't get on with his sister-in-law, Edward IV's wife and queen, Elizabeth, and he in fact accused her of witchcraft, which unsurprisingly didn't go down too well with Edward IV, who finally lost it with his brother George and had him sent to the Tower of London. Anyway, the story goes, while he was in the tower, George was drowned in a vat of wine. Whether or not this is true, George was never seen again. Meanwhile, Richard is married to Anne Neville, whose previous husband was Edward, Prince of Wales, who was the son of Henry VI, the old enemy. This clearly was a pragmatic move on the part of Richard. However, in the Shakespeare play, as Richard seduces Anne, he confesses to her late husband's murder. This, of course, is highly unlikely. Suddenly, and out of the blue, Edward falls violently ill and dies. The heir to the throne is of course his young son Edward, or Edward V. In 1483, a 12-year-old Edward arrived in London with his brother Richard to claim the crown. But due to doubts as to the legitimacy of his parents' marriage, the young princes will be sent to the Tower of London, where they will be forever known in history as the Princes in the Tower. Richard's marriage to Elizabeth is officially declared invalid. Therefore, any claim to the throne from his son Edward would be an illegitimate one. The Princes in the Tower were never seen alive again. This left a vacancy on the throne, so step up Richard III. Richard's reign lasted a mere 2 years, as the War of the Roses was to catch up with him, which he ultimately lost to Henry VII, who was the father of Henry VIII and the grandfather of Elizabeth I. The Plantagenets were finished, and the Tudors victorious. The decisive battle was the Battle of Bosworth, where Richard was to lose his life and utter the immortal words of Shakespeare, a horse, my kingdom for a horse, which were, of course, the words of Shakespeare, not the words of Richard. Richard was buried in a small local church, which was later demolished by Henry VIII. As to the whereabouts of the remains of Richard, this remained a mystery for nearly 500 years. That is until this car park in Leicester revealed the secret.
You're a member of the Richard III Society. I read someplace that members of the Richard III Society, they believe that he was one of the best English kings. I mean, is that true? Do you believe that? And why do you believe that?
There's a number of reasons. I mean, he fought for justice most of his life, and particularly for the common man when he was a king. He gave us the system of bail. He opened up the printing industry, giving us books and the freedom of information. And he also initiated and applied the legal principles of the presumption of innocence and blind justice. How many people know that today?